Resolved that the Board of Education return to regular session, time 6:15. We have a motion?
Motion, John.
And a second?
Second, Rick.
Any discussion? Motion passes. All right, good evening, everybody. On to presentations. First up, we have National FFA Convention. Jesse, do you need it at all?
We emailed the presentation to Chelsea just now. I just did it a couple minutes ago. Sorry.
You gonna try to put it on this screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to send it to you.
Okay. Chelsea, do you have it?
I just sent it to you.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
I don't have access. Do you need to give me access?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in. Is it on? Is it loading up there?
No.
Is it loading up there?
Yeah.
Arjun, you want me to do it? Sorry.
Is there anything?
Right behind you.
There you go.
There we go.
Good evening. I am Abby Leduc, president of the Beekmantown FFA chapter. This is Gavin.
I'm the treasurer of the FFA chapter.
Samantha Parker, who is included in the slides and went on to this amazing experience as well with us, is unfortunately not able to come tonight, but she would love to. We attended the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana last October. We thought we'd take the time to share some memories made from this amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attend such a monumental event. We attended with our sister chapter, the Northern Adirondack FFA, and made many new connections throughout most all 50 states, including most of the District 3 and New York chapters. There were over 68,000 FFA members, advisors, alumni, and supporters in attendance at the convention. First, we went to Lincoln Electric. It was about a 13-hour ride. We went from a bus, and we went with our sister chapter.
We went from NAC to Canton, and then at Canton we got into a coach bus, and from that we went to Lincoln Electric, that was down in Ohio, and we got to tour their whole facility. It's a gorgeous building. They have such a nice school over there. I actually got an offer, like they were talking to me about it, offering me a scholarship down there. And then next we went to Blue Buffalo that same day. We got to tour their whole facility. We saw they made their dry cat food, and it was really interesting.
Then we went to the Hayes Arbitrum. He saw the bee exhibit. He was really excited about that since he owns his own beehive. But we just got to meet so many different people, and there was just so much education built into it. It was all about nature, and you got to see all the trees, and it was really cool. Then we went to the Joseph Moore Museum, which had a lot of animals that were even live ones downstairs, which you can see in the bottom picture there. That's Gavin with a iguana. But there was also one of their newest exhibits, which was a mummy that was brought from Egypt, I think. And we got to see that all wrapped up in a case in the back. I never really got any pictures of that because we weren't allowed to, but it was really cool. Then we went to opening session at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, and we got to see all 50 states were there. So you saw absolutely everyone from every chapter, from Maine to Alaska to Hawaii and Puerto Rico. At the convention, we had some fun. There was a whole floor of activities to do, like the one where we're riding the bull there. It was just a green background, and you were just able to sit on the bull. They had chaps and everything to take pictures, so it was really fun. Then we did a community service project. One of the activities on the floor included a pillow making station. So you were able to make your own pillow, and you put a book in it for children, and we named it from the Beekmantown FFA chapter. Then we had the amazing opportunity to see Lauren Elena and Jimmy Allen in the same night at a concert, just right in the city. It was really fun. There was a lot of singing, and it was really cool. Then we went to a rodeo. It's the world's toughest rodeo. And we got to see everyone, and we got to talk with everyone. And we got to see all the trick riding, and there was bull riding. It was really mainly focused on people that had made it to that state. They're working on their nationals. Then we went to the Indianapolis Zoo. So we got to see all the animals there. There's a bit of northern Adirondack in those photos. Those are mainly the people that we traveled with. But we did get to meet more people than that, for sure. Then the last session at Lucas Oil Stadium was their closeout section. It was just really cool. Again, you get to meet all these people. They had a whole dancing situation where you're able to go down and just dance with all of the states. It didn't matter. It was really cool to see. Like, it didn't matter where you were from. Everyone just enjoyed each other and their time together. And we got to see the actual national president of FFA. And we did have the pleasure to talk with him, but we would have loved to. Any questions?
Thank you.
How do you like FFA? What drives you to go to this national conference and participate in this program for Beekmantown?
So it's just the amount of opportunities that opens up. Like that scholarship, I would have never been offered. My love for welding it spiked when I started joining FFA. Like everything we do is hands-on, and we do have a little bit of the book work, but with everything.
It's not just agriculture though, it's college opportunity. They see your leadership skills, they see a whole bunch of different things that can be used in your forward your actual life. So as you grow, you're able to use FFA as like it's a step up from not just school, but it just helps with your mental stability, and you're able to meet a whole bunch of people from different states. So that was really cool because you get to experience so many different cultures.
Terrific.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
So next up is student achievement, and I'm just going to use the screen so people want to. So I'll start using the screen, and then we're going to move to the middle school. It's always taught in the middle, but today they're going to be first. Middle school will be first after I go to the first presenter. Then we'll move to the elementary schools, and then finish with the high school. But I just wanted to start with some global data that I think I can get to almost any type of student achievement data point we want to, with a platform that we subscribe to at Bobosi's down in Westchester. But I know I've heard a lot of things about our student data, and maybe it's not as good as it is, or maybe it's worse, maybe it's better, I don't know where that comes from, but the data is the data. That's the beautiful thing about data is right there in front of us. So we're going to start with 2000. We're going to start with our latest data from 2022. And these are the Regents exams in the high school. And we normally don't compare them across the whole state, but we are today because I was recently in a conversation that compared Beekmantown data to the whole state, and they were saying we weren't doing particularly well when we compare it to the state. Now, one of the things that when you look at data, you should we believe, and I think most educators, well, I know most educators believe this, even internally, that comparing data, there should be some type of similar schools to compare against. And one of the great common denominators are what schools have similar type of students that have socioeconomic backgrounds that may be similar, right? So if you compare yourself against the really, really small schools or the really, really rich schools, it sometimes is an unfair comparison. This comparison says, without any of those, just comparing us with all the different school districts that took the Regents exams in the state, we were better than 50, combined, better than 56% of them. But if we use the constraint of socioeconomic status, we begin to compare how we are against school districts that have students that may be combined a little bit less, have a little bit more advantage, I guess, than we would, the students that we have, and some that are far more needy than we have. And that's a pretty good number right here. I think that's about 60, we're better at 282 schools. And I'm sorry, I wish I could be over there and talking more about that, but as you look over on that side, out of 282 schools that are somewhat similarly situated, we're ranked 69th. So that's not in the bottom 20%, not in the bottom half, not in the top half, but in the top 25% when you combine all of our scores. Some of those scores we definitely need to work on, and we'll talk about that. Some of those scores we're really proud of, and we definitely want to do better because we like, having really good student achievement. I'm going to preface this by saying all the student achievement you're going to see doesn't begin to encapsulate the Beekmantown Central School District. This isn't our calling card. These Regents exams are taken by majority of our high school students, and the 3 through 8 tests, which we'll talk about, are taken by the majority of our elementary, or 3 through 8th grade students. And they are a snapshot and a moment in time. These things don't encapsulate the future farmers of America. They don't encapsulate our AP courses. They don't encapsulate our ELO and all. And I shouldn't even begin to name things because there's so many things around here we do that make Beekmantown what it is today. Student achievement data is an important piece of a mosaic, which is Beekmantown. So to put all your marbles into student achievement, while it is important, we want learning here, I would say that learning comes, sometimes it's translated really, really well on an assessment, sometimes on a written assessment, on a state assessment, and sometimes it doesn't, right? Sometimes there's kids that just don't do well on these assessments. Other times maybe somebody doesn't do well on an assessment, but they are a great musician or a great actor, or have a love for welding, which there's no welding Regents exam. So I just want to remind everybody that this is somewhat important. We spend time every year going over the data, but it's not the end-all, be-all by any stretch of the imagination. What I like in this data, what I really like in this data is if you take a look at chemistry, we're going to spend some time on chemistry, living environment, and algebra. But chemistry, we finished 18th in the state out of the 282 schools. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I'd say most of this data is really pretty good. When our students are achieving at 75 or better than 75% of the schools that have students at 50% poverty or more, you're doing something pretty well. Now, last year, last year actually when we compare ourselves with Clinton County schools, and I can get there if you want to, we were first. This year when we compare ourselves with Clinton County schools, it's the small schools, and we are the largest school in Clinton County. We finished combined fourth. We will now move to K through 8, and then we're going to have the K through 8 presentation, so it might be a better time to ask questions. If you take a look this year, we weren't as good as we wanted to be in these assessments. So we're going to go through a couple things which I'm really proud of that look bad, but they're actually, I think, really, really good. Last year, if we take a look at last year, you can see last year we were better without constraints when compared to all the schools, districts in the state. And there's multiple schools within school districts. We know that we have 2 elementary schools. We were better than 51% of the school districts. This year, we didn't perform as well. One thing we do at Beekmantown, I'm going to click on this in just a second. One thing we just started this particular year was we took our Math 8 exam. Most of our kids take the Regents Math exam. And I want to go through that and highlight that because if you look there, that number, when it says that number, we're 470 in the state out of 529, and for 8th grade, we're 620 out of 663 for math. But I want to highlight that because sometimes what looks like a bad number might be a better number than you think. So if we go to, now I'm going to compare ourselves up here to Clinton County, and we go to the Math Regents exams. When we go to the Math Regents exams, you see we're at the bottom of Clinton County because we have 80% of our students got a level 3 or a level 4. Way over there. But there's one number that sticks out. John, you're a numbers guy. Do you see it?
I can't read the numbers.
Oh, come on, John. Here's let me down here. The number is, we had 91 students take the Regents exam. That's actually more than all the students in the county. We had more students at Beekmantown take the Regents exam and pass the Regents exam than all the other schools in the county. And actually all the other schools in the BOCES. So our kids are clearing the most important hurdle to graduation as an 8th grader. Principal Bazile will take his thunder, but he'll tell you what that allows those kids to do as a freshman, and as a sophomore, as a junior, and as a senior. The other thing is, which we like about this, is there are kids that failed that Regents exam. Now we know where they failed. Now we know what they need help on. We offered summer school. Kids went to summer. This does not include summer school. We offered a robust summer school. Kids went to summer school and achieved even higher and greater. So we had more kids pass than that during summer school. I'll give you an example. I know a particular kid who scored an 82. That's passing. He was a 3. He went to summer school, which we believe in for student achievement. He went to summer school, and those teachers, he went every single day, and those teachers moved him from an 82 to, I think, a 92. Okay? That's pretty good work for dedicating your time to summer school. So I do like to point that out. So that's where if we look at that and say, geez, we're 7th, we've got to do better, I don't know what better looks like, okay? Schenectady Central School District has like thousands and thousands, like 7,000 kids, they're way, way bigger than us. They had a few more kids take that assessment than we did. Now, it would be easy. At Northeastern, they had 5 kids take that exam. We had 91, right? What did Placer have, 11? So you peel off the 11 best kids, you take the exam, and you feel pretty good about yourself, okay? What I feel good about is we're getting kids closer to graduation with taking that Regents exam. So the nice thing there is we may be last, but when you look at the combined math results right here, we're actually first. So when you take the 8th grade test, which is really ironic when you think about this. If you take the 8th grade state test, we finished last, right? In the 8th grade Regents exam, we finished last, but when you combine the students' achievement, we go to first. Because we're taking, go ahead.
How many total students in the 8th grade?
How many total students in the 8th grade? Well, there's 91 students that took that test, and there's 41 students that took the other test. So it's about 131, but not everybody takes the test, everybody shows up.
So about 70% of the students in 8th grade are taking 9th grade math.
So about 70% of the students in 8th grade are taking 9th grade math.
And succeeding.
What's that?
And succeeding.
And succeeding, and that doesn't include what? Summer school. And again, the other thing too is this year, so everybody else in the state or everybody else in the county is taking that freshman math this year, and we know those kids that failed, what we really need to prop them up on, right? If you're a 2, can we move those kids to a 3 because we know that they struggle with, I don't know, whatever it might be. So another great point here, and they always say this, is sometimes it's never really how you start the year or how you start your journey, it's how you finish your journey, and certainly 8th grade isn't the finish of a journey, but our Regents exams, not only in 8th grade are outstanding, but our Regents exams not only our 8th grade math Regents exams are outstanding, our 8th grade science Regents exams. So we have more kids taking the science Regents exam, the living environment, so they're getting 2 Regents exams, when most kids in the state aren't getting any Regents exams as an 8th grader. We're not last in the state or near last in the state, we're near first in the state. So I'm going to move this from Clinton County, let's see where we are. Science Regents, out of 149 schools, we're first. This isn't my data, this is state data. This comes right from the state website. So, are we proud of that? Yeah, we should be proud of that. So our living environment, teachers are doing a great job, but that's also not an 8th grade science exam, just so you know. That's accumulation of everything you've learned from pre-K or K all the way through. So I always look at like a 12th grade exam or the 11th grade English exam. That's not what they learned in 11th grade English. That's what they started learning in kindergarten and 1st grade, and it builds on each other with a culminating exam. So you take that into perspective when you look at the data. So there's certainly areas, and you're going to see them, that we need to work on. We know that. We certainly have cohorts of kids that can do better. We certainly look for improvement in cohorts of kids. We never stop looking at our data. Principal Campbell used to say, I'm a data nut, and I wouldn't deny it. But back to where we were with the constraints, I'd say that when we look at similarly situated schools, we're doing pretty well. Before I hand it over to Principal Nelson for the middle school presentation, are there any questions? Okay. Principal Nelson, you're up. I got to find the presentation. Arjun, can you repeat your saying? taking longer today, so it's a little more difficult with the sharing of the documents. I may have an old one for you, but we'll see. I can make changes. So, but
Am I on?
you're on.
I'll start my timer right there. 7 minutes. Strict instructions. All right. So spring of 2022, data, ELA, math, science, and algebra 1 regions for our data report today for our review. Does this not work? This clicker? Oh, yes it does. All right, so what you see there is an evolution of New York State 3 through 8 testing in just the last 5 years up until last spring. You can see there's been quite a few changes, starting in 2018 where they went from 3-day exam to 2-day exam. We also did some computer-based testing in grade 6 and in grade 7 ELA. We did computer-based because we wanted to try it out. We wanted to be the first to see how it went. In 2019, we transitioned to all computer-based testing for every grade level, and you'll see in our data there are reasons why we moved to paper-based testing the next year. We experienced some challenges in terms of connectivity and overloaded the server, and that was a state issue. That was not an in-house issue, so that was something that the state had control over, and it didn't go very well. In 2020, we were prepped for paper-based testing, and as of you know, COVID hit and no test, which I'm sure every student in New York State was really sad and upset about. And so then we enter 2021, and the state decides that we are going to have a test, but we're only going to test one day, one session, and it's going to be multiple choice. There are rumors out there that they recycled some of the previous test questions and excerpts from exams, but it can't be confirmed or denied. But you'll see some of our test scores did go up quite a bit in that year. And we did go to paper-based exams based on our experience of CBT in 2019. So here we are in 2022. We're taking both sessions of the exam, multiple choice and constructed response questions. In that year as well, our 8th graders took Algebra 1. So we have students taking the Algebra 1 Regents exam in June, but we do also have a cluster of students who are taking Algebra 1A, the first half of algebra, so a 2-year algebra program. So we have that as well. Next year, we have another change. We're transitioning to next generation standards, and our 3 through 8 testing will reflect those standards, and they will be aligned to them. The algebra regents won't be aligned until June of 2024. So quite a few changes happening with state testing, and that leads me to my next slide. So it's really difficult to interpret these results from year to year and to establish some consistent trend based on all the changes that have taken place. Basically, we're trying to hit a moving target, and when you aim for a moving target, you're going to get different results at different times. And so the tasks are different, the test itself is different, and then you have different students. And in the cases post-COVID, you have students who experienced all that differently too and are recovering from that. So we move on to the next slide. So we have to basically gauge where our students are and give this exam some to gain context in order to compare apples to apples. And Mr. Mannix alluded to this earlier, it's important to look at schools that are comparable to Beekmantown Middle School in demographics, in size, and environment. And so when we're looking at the ELA data from 2022, you'll see that in grade 8 we had 34.8% pass. That's 141 students tested. We ranked number 4 in Clinton County. We ranked number 4 in grade 7 and number 6 and ranked number 4 again in grade 6. So we achieved at the 50th percentile rank, right, in Clinton County. We also did that if you had economic disadvantage as one of the constraints to New York State report. You'll see that we were well over 56% in grade 6 and 7 ELA and almost hit 40% in grade 8. So what we do with these exams and what we have been doing throughout this year is looking at the ELA state exam and student performance and bringing it down to skills and looking at trends with skills to identify our strengths and weaknesses and what we need to do instructionally to help support our students. And so that's where these exams are used. That's how we have to dive deeper. So for us, this is all surface, and this is good information to see if our students are experiencing the test and achieving on the test similar to those in art and math, right? So it's a good place to start. So when we look at our next slide, which is our math, again, a moving target, the first thing your eyes are drawn to is that Math 8. Whoa! Our students have struggled with Math 8. However, we do have algebra. We've had algebra here for quite a while. We offer that opportunity to our students. And so those students, those high-achieving students, they don't take the Math 8. So their performance isn't reflected in our results. And so when I first arrived here, we had one cohort of algebra students, and then we moved on to having 2 cohorts. And so that resulted in more students taking the algebra regents and less of those high-achieving students who have that lean towards the STEM careers and have that strength in math. They're not taking that exam. And so you'll see there's a little bit of a result there for Math 8 from 2022. I can go to the next slide. You'll see that 0% pass, and that looks bad on the surface for that Math 8. Again, because we have everyone taking the regents, 44 students only took that exam in 2022. And if we look at those students who took the exam and students with disabilities, we rank number 2 in Clinton County. So our students are doing well. Our teachers are doing a magnificent job helping to support our students. And I will tell you, so we have 22 students with disabilities taking that exam, and the rest of those students were taking Algebra 1A. All right, and so we are, again, preparing them to take the second half of algebra as when they're freshmen. So that's our 2-year program. Am I going to out this slide now, Mr. Mayor? All right.
I can't go back.
Are you moving me along here? Is that it?
I don't have a stop.
So I'll go to this slide. 91 8th graders took the algebra regents, which Superintendent Mann did a fine job explaining that. We had 80% pass that exam in June, and Mr. Desire will talk a little bit about all the work that our algebra teachers did over the summer to help support those students achieving proficiency on that Regents exam. Overall, though, 3 students failed the Regents but passed the class. This was prior to the summer bridge program, and they were going to take the January Regents because they've already had that support in the school year, and now they take an AIS class, an intervention class in the high school, and that will help them prepare them for that January Regents. And then only 1 student passed the Regents and failed the class, and so they'll be on a different program. However, we're very, very happy with our success in algebra, and this year we have over 90 students preparing to take that test again. So we'll move back to science. We've always been high performing in science in grade 8 here at Beekmantown Middle School. It's interesting to note that when we look at the 2021 results, we're not right where we were, but those students didn't have hands-on learning experience in science for quite a while, right? And so they took that test for the first time there, and then we have the 2022 results, which there was improvement. Again, our 49 living environment students in 2022 did not take that Science 8 exam. And so, because they're preparing for the living environment exam to take that as 8th graders. So we have quite a few students who are preparing for those regions in the middle school and opening up opportunities for them. So what does this mean? We have some our instructional priorities, which we have started right from the beginning of the year to evaluate our data and go through the trends to really hone in where our weaknesses are so we can support those students and maybe change a little bit of our instruction. So we are looking at math because math is challenging, and so we're piloting the Eureka Squared program in the middle school. We also have increased accessibility to math labs, so our intervention programs. We have Algebra Lab that we've started in order to support those students who are on that bubble, who find math algebra specifically challenging, to help support them. And that is available every day or every other day based on their need. And then our ELA courses. I like how Mr. Gutierrez said once in a meeting, usually it's all about how can our other content areas support ELA. Our ELA teachers provide instruction on how to write in math and how to respond to constructive response, because those constructive response questions require students to write about how did you come to that answer. And so they're working on that in ELA. And so ELA, what we've done this year is we've also implemented Reading Naturally to help with our students, and then they are collaborating with other content areas such as math to support them. Cross-discipline, when we have learning experience to offer support and further challenge our students, that's really what we're focused on this year, is not only how do we support our students who are struggling, but what opportunities, enrichment opportunities can we provide our students who have mastered a certain skill, and so enhance their experience. And we're also focused on strengthening literacy skills in each discipline. Our social studies teachers and science teachers are identifying different reading materials where they can help engage students in activities in their classroom. So state exams, and Superintendent Mannix, you mentioned this earlier, is that it's just one piece, it's one data point that we use. And we use it to inform our instruction on what we can do. But it's also a way to help us define what skills our students are lacking so that we can help support them. And then we provide feedback with the test. So we use it as one data point, and then we look at other data points like Reading Plus, like Fast Bridge Math, ELA assessment, and the experience the teachers have with those students in the classroom in order to determine academic placement.
Thank you. Any questions for middle school?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Missy.
All right, hi everybody. So, there we go. So my first two slides really reiterate exactly what Principal Nelson just talked about, so I will not go over all these slides. I just wanted it in the presentation so you had it for future reference if you wanted to look at it. But the biggest caveat certainly is what Principal Nelson mentioned as far as the 2019-2020 and then the 2021-2022. We had 2 exams, whole parts of the exam, and then just one part given last year. So I'll talk about that as well when we get into the the actual data. Okay. So this first slide of data shows our ELA grade 5, and I pulled this out, shows us as a rank of 7th with, it's hard for me to read that far away too, 26.5 of our 5th graders reaching a 3 or 4 on that exam, and this is all compared with Clinton County. This is the same thing for 4th grade. It shows us with a ranking of 10 with 37.7% of our students, reaching a 3 or 4 on that exam as well. And again, this is with Clinton County. This slide, you're fine. This slide is the same exact data, but I like to look at it a little bit better. So it shows us that, I circled that 40 for you. That's our 37.7% of our kids. Again, with Clinton County, looking pretty good. And I'm proud of that 4th grade team for sure. And again, it's all of our K through 4 at that point. So our science. So if we look at this data, I'm not sure if you can see it from where you're at. The very first 2 columns, the light blue says 2019. Then we have our gap, which is 2020. The dark blue is 2021, and the red is 2022. The 4 bars on the left are all grade 4. The 4 bars on the right are all grade 8. So the grade 4, what I want to focus on here, is looking at the red and the light blue. So we compared our 2019 to our 2022 data, even after pandemic pieces, no test in 2020, and then moving forward to 2022 and onward to this year, and next year, making some progress. So I just want to illustrate that for you. Here, I'm sure you can't read this, I apologize, I'll read some of it for you. So this is our New York State science standards that have changed considerably. So in the box to the left of the circle, it says 2019, 2022. So this past spring is our last administration of the current science exam. That was in line with the 1996 standards. It's a long time ago. And so this year, our 4th graders will not take a science exam. They'll take that exam in 5th grade, aligned with the current standard we have now. So that gives them instruction this year. We're using our Generation Genius science curriculum program with those kids. And then this year, the 5th grade teacher is working on the science investigations, which is a different way to look at our science hands-on component. And next year, 5th grade will take that exam. So they'll have 2 years of instruction with the new standard. Moving on to math. This slide shows us for grade 3 math. We're looking at 9th for a rank, and then 31% of our kids reaching a 3 or 4. And then this, I'll spend some time on. This is a heat graph, and I'm sure you can't see the numbers, but I have some arrows there. The left is ELA, the right being math. So again, highlighting 2019 to 2022 on both of those 2 graphs. So the darker the color, the stronger show as far as the exam is concerned. So both in every grade level, grade 5, 4, and 3 for ELA, we have a lot of improvement over those past couple of years. Looking at math, grade 3 and 4 have pretty strong improvement. Grade 5, we have to do a little bit of work on. But with that said, we have our grade 5 teacher, as Principal Nelson mentioned, piloting the Eureka Math Squared program with all grade 5 students. That's our only grade level that teacher teaches every single student at that grade level. So we're piloting that this year and hoping to see some movement from that as well. So as Principal Nelson mentioned, all of this data is just a piece of our kiddos. So I wanted to highlight for you other ways we look at data at BES and certainly at Cumberland Penn. We have our database. And so it's 3 times a year. And we have separate days just to look at state testing. These days are to look at our everyday occurrences with those kids to give us another picture of those students. So we look at all reading, all math, and all SABRS data. And I know that Ms. Taverney, I think, has presented on SABRS data in the past too. That's our SEL, our social emotional tool to see how our kids are doing. And then as well, intervention team, so all my interventionist AIS teachers, we meet every other week with our data coordinator and talk about kids who need to move, change placement, things like that. So the chart you see there is just a sample of our savers. We have a chart for every single kiddo that goes to school at BES, and they're ranked. Do they have some risk? What are we doing with those kids? Let's make sure we don't miss anybody. They're getting supported, right? The next piece, can you back up one? This is our reading data, and again, it's no actual kiddos, but again, we evaluate this every single week, or every other week, excuse me, and then they're placed as accordingly. So when teachers are making their placements for the following year, class recommendations, this is a component, so is their state exam, and as Principal Nelson said, that teacher experience and other pieces too. So that leads us to kind of what our focus is right now. So with ELA, we're moving more toward a science of reading piece. We'll probably see some more professional development on that, trainings, conferences, and we're looking at other supports for those kids, actually tier 1, 2, and 3, to make sure they're getting everything they need every day. For math, that Eureka's Math Squared pilot, we had another training this evening, actually, just another hour training after school tonight, and we have another meeting this week to discuss what everyone thinks about the curriculum. For science, so this summer, Principal Stoutenger and I had some trainings on Generation Genius. We had more training at our recent Staff Development Day, and there's great alignment with that. That's going well. That's helping support those new science standards to make sure kids are thinking in this new mindset. And then regarding SEL, again, that social emotional learning, top 20 every day, that's a curriculum that we have now, or program we have now. It's intentional, it's purposeful, and making sure our kids are that whole rounded piece they need to be. I think that's all I have.
Any questions for Principal Barber?
Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
Principal Stoutenger, are you using the one that you sent a long time ago last month? The basis for that?
Yeah, I think so. Same one. Okay, so I will present to you the Cumberland Head Elementary School results for spring 2020 ELA in math, and science was already covered by Principal Barcombe. Again, this is just a slide reiterating the changes. This is an official statement on the New York State Education Department website, just cautioning us to, as we compare the tests from the COVID years and the non-COVID years. Okay, this slide shows a snapshot of all 3 through 5 BCSD students, VES and Cumberland Head combined. The different years are color-coded. The chart goes back to 2018. There's no data for 2020 due to the pandemic. You can see, as you've heard, 2019 was a strong showing. We did really well. But keep in mind, it was just the first part, which is multiple choice. And 2022 was overall stronger than the pre-pandemic, with the exception of third grade ELA. And you can see that adding in part 2 for both ELA and math in 2022 shows an area to improve would be in the written response and constructive responses where students have to support their findings. And teachers were given time with our data coordinator to go over the skills that students need, and a great focus is now being placed on written and extended responses all the way to 8th grade that sounds. Next. This is our math. It's the same information for the math test. The 2022 scores were comparable for the most part to the pre-pandemic. Still, 2021 was the highest performing test. Again, it was just the first part, just multiple choice, no written response. The next slide. Okay, so this is what we call a heat map, and as Principal Barcombe said, the darker color means the better showing. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight our 5th grade as they compare to our BOCES, which is out of 21 schools. So 5th grade ranked 2nd with 50% scoring 3 or 4. 4th grade ranked 14th with 30.6% scoring a 3 or 4. And 3rd grade was also in the same range with a 29.4 scoring at a 3 or 4. So that's a really impressive result for our 5th grade teachers and our 5th grade students. And I like this chart because you can actually see from 2021 to 2022, if you move If you move diagonal, you can see how a cohort progresses. And looking at this, it would appear that 3rd graders, they need to practice taking the test a little bit, because in general, the 5th grade results show improvement. Next slide.
This is the math.
That was the math one? Okay.
I'm
sorry.
No, you just did the ELA one.
Okay, yes, this is math. 5th grade ranked 2nd with 54.3%, scoring at 3 or 4. And 4th grade ranked 16th with 27.8%, scoring a 3 or 4. And 3rd grade in the same area ranked 19th with 27.3, scoring a 3 or a 4. So again, math and ELA, our 5th grade results were excellent. Now these next few slides, hard to see, but I'll just give you the numbers. We'll compare Cumberland Head next to Clinton County. So for 5th grade ELA, we ranked 2nd with 50% scoring at a level 3 or 4. Grade 5 math, again, really great standing, 2nd in the county with 54.3% scoring at a 3 or a 4. Grade 4 ELA, we are ranked 11th with 30.6% scoring a 3 or 4, and 75% we're getting a 2 or a 3, so we do have a lot of 2s in there. Okay. Grade 4 math, ranked 10th in Clinton County, 27.8% scoring at a 3 or a 4. Again, more students scored in that level 2 range. Grade 3 ELA, ranked 9th, 29.4%, scoring at a level 3 or 4. Again, more of our students are falling in that level 2 range. And grade 3 math, ranked 12th with 27.3, scoring at a 3 or 4, and again 54.5 at a 2, 3 or 4. So most students are falling in that level 2 range. But we are, next slide. We've shifted our instructional priorities based on our testing, our findings, teacher recommendations. Math, we are piloting Eureka Math Squared for this school year, K through 5. We have a math committee that assembled over the summer and identified some key focus skills, and one of the committee recommendations was to practice math back fluency. So Cumberland Head has the Math Olympics once a month, and it's a competition amongst the grade levels to see who has the most fluent math facts, and they get a prize, and I get excited about that. Science, we've adopted Generation Genius. Principal Barcombe talked about this. We have a curriculum map created, which complements our already existing STEM activity, Project Lead the Way.
and whoops, that doesn't go in there. I'll keep going. In the science of reading, we're trying to increase teacher understanding on the science of reading. We're implementing practices based on it. We had about 20 teachers take part in a 6-week book study with me that focused on the science of reading. Over our superintendent's day, we had several, all of the interventionists started a webinar course from the Yale Center of Dyslexia to learn more evidence-based practices to help students overcome reading difficulty. And upcoming in March, a group of elementary teachers are attending the Plain Talk Literacy Conference in New Orleans. It's the premier conference in the science of reading. We tried to go last year, but it was sold out before we even were able to find out about the conference. It's very popular. I'm looking forward to that. So looking forward to focusing on our reading instruction and seeing improvements across the board with all our data, not just our state assessments. Any questions?
Well, Superintendent is getting ready for the PowerPoint. I do want to recognize Ms. Weldon for the teacher over here, for the FFA, our ag teacher, provide those opportunities for our kids. I think that's the essence of what we do here at Beekmantown, provide those opportunities. You've seen a lot of data tonight, right? But those are the opportunities too that provide our kids, that give the opportunity to get scholarships, to get in the trenches and find something they love for a job later on. I think that's important to highlight, and I want to thank Ms. Weldon for that too as well. So. All right. All right, so high school data, we'll go to that next slide. Let's start right off. So kind of how I broke this down was kind of comparison data from basically high school the last 4 years within ourselves, kind of showing the progression within the high school, within those grades. Throughout those years, you can see where the pandemic came in and where we are currently. One of the things I do want to point out too is that on the right-hand side where you see that's highlighted, those are special appeals. So basically what a special appeal is the state of New York offered this past year through August 2023, this August, any student that scored a 50 to 64 in a Regents exam automatically qualifies for that credit for graduation. So that highlighted number, if you look at that number, with our special appeals, 95% of our kids on the Algebra 1 Regents will get graduation credit for that region. So that's a huge number. And as we've talked about before with the Algebra 1 middle school, that's pretty substantial. 95% of our kids coming into 9th grade right now, as 9th graders, right, and 10th graders are already got the math of the way for graduation. Pretty awesome. So that just gives you an idea of what that looks like within those special appeals. So you can kind of see on that graph what that breakdown is a percentage. And in that percentage is our August region. So I do want to highlight the importance of summer school. I want to highlight the importance of the review classes that we do during summer school, and it just resembles the rigor of what our summer school does, and keeping those high expectations throughout summer school within those expectations. Because you'll see here as we go through the data, the importance of summer school and the importance of raising our rank within those percentages. You can see the first one is that's just overall proficiency, 86% in Algebra 1. And then the level 5 or higher, level 4 or higher is the bottom number. So that's a higher level of students getting that higher proficiency score. And that's really an 85 or higher on the Regents exam. This next slide, should be one minute. Yeah, so this gives you kind of a little bit of comparison on the Algebra 1 data. So this is a comparison within Algebra 1 and us in Clinton County. One of the things I do want to point out, right, is that was after the June Regents. Okay, so if you look at the June Regents and you add our 86%, right, moving up from our summer school, we are ranked second on that list now. The problem with school meters, they don't update after August Regents, they don't give those scores calculated in that percentage, which is tough. And I know a lot of schools in the area didn't offer the August Regents or offer summer school, so that's a huge impact. 86%, if you look at that number, that pushes us to number 2 in algebra across the board. That's a huge tip in our cap at Beekmantown, where I have 195 students taking that exam. If you look at that number on there, right, 195 students taking the algebra Regents exam, the closest to us is 121. So we have 70 students more take that exam, and we're second after August. That's impressive. And that is the hard work of our teachers, the hard work of summer school, the rigor of summer school, and all those components that go. You know, we go right to August, right? We don't just stop in June. Our goal in high school is to make sure that we're going all the way through into that next year, which has been very important for us. Geometry, obviously this is 64. We don't like to see 64% on a geometry exam. Definitely down from 89% the year prior. But if you look at that special appeal again, right? So overall, special appeal, you have on our geometry Regents, 91% of the kids that took the geometry Regents will get high school credit, Regents credit for that exam. And the important thing to think here is that's on track for an advanced diploma, right? So our kids aren't just getting Regents diplomas anymore. That geometry Regents puts them in play as a sophomore, or most of them taking it in 9th grade now, to get that advanced Regents diploma. That's huge as a young time in their career. But the other part I want to go to the next slide, Mr. Mix. Right now, everybody you can kind of see was lower this year. Even that number is not good, 57%, right? That number is low for everybody. It was a tough test this year, coming back from one of the toughest tests I think that was given this past year was that geometry test. But if you look at that number, right? So we have that number 77, right? That is the most. We classify 80, but look at the amount of students that are taking that geometry exam, putting them in play for an advanced diploma, right? That is part of that essence of why we start our kids in algebra in 8th grade. It puts 77 kids, and 80 kids out of that class, right, are now set up to take advanced Regents diploma coursework. So that's really impressive. And if you look, if you look at that percentage, right, within that, if you go back to that one. If you look at the percentage number, we have 77 students at 64%. We still have more students getting geometry credit, Regents credit for graduation than any other school in that list. So that's important to me too. If you look at those numbers, the other thing to note too is we have what we call open enrollment, right? So any kid can challenge a geometry class, right? As long as they've gotten through Algebra 1. They can challenge that Regents class. We don't say, oh, only you can take this class or you can take this class to help those numbers, right? But you can do that, right? You can just say, hey, we're going to pick these students, certain students to take this. We're not doing that. We're letting any student take that exam. One of the things, too, to combat this year is in the scheduling, we added a lab period to geometry. So now those geometry students have every other day a lab period to help push up that number, right? That 64 is not good enough for me. Right, not good enough for our math teachers, anybody in our building. Although we did pretty well, if you look, it's not terrible. But we're going to counter that with a lab period to give those students extra time in the classroom with that teacher every other day to help build that capacity and get that proficiency score up from there. We've seen pretty good success with that already. Number 2, 91% after August. That is also a huge indicator of giving our students higher early math, right, Algebra 1. 74 students taking Algebra 2. That's the highest level of math for Regents. We have 74 students. The correlation, which is really nice to see too, is right. So the geometry and Algebra 2, that number is pretty close to 80. So a lot of those students are continuing to get that advanced diploma. That's the goal of that, giving that Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Algebra 2, you can see we're ranked 4th among those groups, but if you take summer school within that, it pushes us up to number 1. So the highest level of math for Regents right now with summer school, our kids are performing the best in the area. We're getting the most amount of students. If you look at that number, right, 75, we have the most amount of students taking Algebra 2, and we're number 1 on that list. That is what that progression takes, right? That progression of getting those kids those Algebra 1 early, moving to geometry in 9th grade, getting to Algebra 2 in 10th grade. Now our students are able to take those AP courses as juniors, and AP Stats, AP Calc, and getting college credits as juniors and seniors is remarkable. So you can see the fruit of the labor there. It is working. The hardest test. ELA, this past year we're 83%. If you look again at the special appeals, we're at 95% proficiency. Huge number. I see the ELA exam as one of the most rigorous exams because everybody takes it, right? So it's not like you're taking a geometry test where, not every student takes it. ELA, everybody has to take that in junior year. And I think it's a very rigorous test for our students. So if you go to the next slide, obviously we, last year, were shifted down. But if you take August Regents with that, let me just pull it up real quick. Our August Regents with ELA, with 83%, that pushes us up to 4th, right? So with the August Regents in summer school, we are not 8th. That's actually a skewed number because we are pushing that up to 83%. We are just above that, moving up to 4th in that ranking. We spent a lot of time in ELA and our department meetings working on really looking at curriculum, looking at data, and trying to figure out ways that we can improve that number. One of the things we were looking at too is looking at more short stories rather than novels. It's because that holistic viewpoint of a lot of students, every student takes it junior year. So trying to figure out lexile levels and short stories that fit the needs of those students and curtailing that curriculum towards those students has been our goal this year. And we've put a lot of work into that, which is really nice to see. The other piece we're looking at too, to change that, is looking at ELA and getting that test in January. So we're having all of our ELA students take that test this January. The reason being is it gives those students an opportunity to take that exam. A lot of our students through COVID haven't really sat for exams, so we want to give that opportunity. The second piece of that, what it does is it gives our teachers the ability to look at that data and say, what questions did they miss? What skills were weak in January, not waiting until June? And we can make those adjustments right away when we get those scores back in February. So you can see we're working hard to improve that score on that end of it, and the teachers are doing a great job in that piece. Science, if you look at science, these are pretty impressive scores. Living environment was 93% proficiency. And if you look at how we compare within like schools, we're second. Living environment, but once again, if you push, with those numbers at 93%, we're right below Shazy at 94, right? With summer school and everything like that at 93. And once again, look at the number of students taking. We had 149 students take that exam, right? 149 students is a huge number. Having 93% of those students pass that exam is pretty impressive. Earth science, once again, in the 90s, right? This is a progression, once again, as you look, we talked about with math, same thing in science, right? We have our students in 8th grade taking that living environment exam, doing pretty well. 49 kids took that living environment exam in 8th grade. That boasts our number for earth science, right? So now we have 86 kids taking earth science for advanced Regents diploma in science, right? That's a huge number. 77 out of 86 kids passing that exam, and that's a high rigorous test. Is pretty impressive. If you look at, once again, special appeals, 95% of those students will get that Regents credit for earth science, which is going to put them towards an advanced diploma. And if you look at us in comparison data, we're number 1. That's earth science. That's a higher level math or science that we're number 1 in the area with the amount of students taking that test. So our kids, when they walk out of here, we have more kids getting that advanced Regents diploma credit in science than any other school, which is really cool. Chemistry, you're not going to see this very often. It's completely impressive. We had a 99% proficiency rate on that exam. This is the hardest science Regents exam that we will offer our kids. And our kids get a 99%. That's 77 kids. 76 out of 77 kids passed the hardest Regents exam in the state in chemistry. That's the goal, right? And that's, as you guys look at the data tonight, that progression from elementary, middle to high school, that chemistry exam is the highest science test you can take. We have 99% proficiency rate. That's just, that's amazing. Once again, I don't know how we're number 2 on that, but if you look at the numbers on that, that's what kind of looks at that number with chemistry. Is the one ahead of us only has 36 students, right? We doubled those students with 76 students getting that credit. They only had 36 take the test. We had 76. So highly impressive. Physics, Students got an 82% in physics. What I like to look at that number is 48% of our students who took that exam received mastery or higher, so they had 85 or higher on that exam. That's at college level. Those physics exams, a lot of those kids, what they're doing for that physics exam, taking physics, is being more medical fields in college. So those are our kids looking at that medical field. So that's an impressive number too. 100% proficiency if you're looking at special fields. And that puts us ranking-wise, if you just go to that next slide, number 1 in the area for physics. So we like to be at top of those lists, and I think that's the goal. And you can see that progression throughout. Everything that these other principals and buildings are doing are getting us to that point of being at the top of that list. Social studies, global history. This was a new exam this past, a transition exam, and this was the first time that we've taken this new exam. We hit 86%. 98% of our students got special appeals on that, so we got that Regents credit for that. Which puts us, right at 5. But if I like the number with level 5 or higher, we're top 3. So what does that tell you? That a lot of our kids are getting 85 or higher on that global history exam. It's brand new. Our kids are getting high scores on that. Top 3 is pretty impressive with that number. U.S. history, this exam last in June was canceled. One of the reasons why was the Buffalo shooting that they had. There was a question supposedly on the test that could trigger some emotions on that, so they got rid of that test. It is a new test. We have not seen the newest test yet, so this June will be the first time that we get to see the exam. They're not offering in January, so it'll be interesting to see. We've been working for a couple of years now and trying to prepare for it. So as Superintendent Nance mentioned at the beginning, you can see kind of where we've been overall Regents data as a high school at Beekmantown. Last year we were first. This year we were 4th overall. That's taking into account every single one of those Regents exams. We're number 4 on that list, which is, because I like last year being number 1, but we're always going to get striving to get to that point again. I think that might be. Yeah, this just gives you, I just wanted to emphasize the impact of summer school that it had on, and you guys could see the impact that summer school, having that extra 2 months in the summer, boost those grades, right? You can see how it pushed us, up to top 3 in most areas with that summer school. I kind of did a breakdown. You guys can look at the portal, the increase, even just ELA, we had 6 kids that came and got proficiency grades, right? And you had another 4 that got special appeals. So we had 10 extra kids this summer come in and take that ELA exam and get graduation credit for it over the summer. Right? Kids that previously did not pass it or get a special appeal, they got it. Right? So that's impressive. If you look at Algebra 1, we had 18 kids do that in a summer program, right? In 6 weeks, 18 kids now have that credit to graduate. Is pretty impressive. It tells you the work that goes on. Because those kids didn't pass it in June. It tells you the rigor of what summer school is and those high expectations that summer school has.
A couple kids passed it and came back to improve their score.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of what we did too, some of which was unique, is any student that really didn't hit master or wanted to come back and take the exam, even if they got the special appeal. So, a student that got us 50 to 64, I asked them to come in and take it again. Come to summer school, do the reviews, retake it. So you're not going to special appeal on your required transcript anymore. You have a grade that says 65 or higher. You passed the exam, right? I think that's important to look at transcripts and say with colleges and things like that is that you didn't just take the special appeal. You came back and you took that exam again. You tried to better yourself and get a passing grade. So that was one of the things that we did this summer through the summer school program that is unique. A lot of schools did not do that. I can guarantee that. It takes a lot of work to do that. You got to bring, the teachers coming in, doing the review sessions, and making sure we're preparing our kids for that is a lot of work. So I think that's what sets I think Beekmantown apart is doing those things. I had several parents call from other districts asking if they could go to our review sessions, asking if they could take the August Regents exams here because their schools weren't offering. So that just tells you the impact that we have here and what we do over the summer. And just over the year. Last slide I have here is graduation data. You can see last year, 2021, we were 94% graduation, and last year we were just under 92%. You can see those three, basically there's a 3-year, a 6-year average that goes with the state data that they look at. looking at those numbers. What I really like is, last year's data, look at your, our 5th and 6th year rates, 94 and 93%. So what does that mean? It means any student that did not pass the previous year, we got 94% of those students pass the next year. So we don't give up on our kids. We want to get that, graduation rate was, we got them that next year. And that's the important part. We're getting kids through, getting the skills that they need to be successful.
Any questions for the high school?
I actually have one question. I know CDS provides great data on the regions, but being a math teacher, I get a little frustrated because the one thing that we don't actually get to do, and I hope our teachers here do, is to get to look at our students' papers and see what the specific mistakes were. So just because they lost points on a particular question, it simply could be the kid keeps dropping a negative sign. And it shows up in all these other areas, but it's the same mistake 15 times. So I hope our teachers get an opportunity to look at our exact papers, go over those, and get some ideas what their kids did.
Yeah, one of the things that we do is each content area has a Google folder, and I broke down, we break down the item analysis of each one. It's in there in that folder. So each year, the last 4 years, we took the data and said, okay, here's where our biggest weaknesses were within those tests. From those item analysis, actual kid questions, looking through each test and saying, okay, here's specific questions, bringing up the Regents exam, looking at that question and saying, where did we go wrong? How do we teach it differently? What are the distractors and the answers that might have thrown us off? So that's a big part of what we've been doing.
Okay. So are they looking at, to get the questions, what CVES provides as they lost? It's a 4-point question, the kid got 2 points.
Right.
Do they get to look at their specific students' answers to see what the 2 points were, or just it was a 2-point response?
So the extended response you talked about, Will?
Yeah, the 2, 3, and 4, the parts 2, 3, and 4 of those regions, if they can actually look at, like I look at my kids and say, you know what, every kid got that one wrong. That's on me as a teacher. I didn't get it across to them. But I can't tell some of what CBS gets because I don't know what the mistake was.
Right.
So it's another opportunity that takes a little bit of time. But I've always found it very valuable as a teacher to look at my kids' actual response, since we don't score our own kids' papers.
Right. Right.
Just a thought.
Good point.
So I wanted to close. You heard, thanks, John, for the question. You heard a lot of different interventions that we do for students and a lot of different success stories. I arrived here, was fortunate to be hired in 2013. In 2012, when you take our similarly situated schools, Beekmantown's achievement data was, we were 218th out of 254 schools. So that we're in the bottom, whatever percent that is, and now we're in the top 25%. And I'd say we're there because we built in I know we didn't have a lot of professional development in 2012. I know we had lost teachers in 2012 and years before that. And I know that we have a lot of different types of classes in summer schools and interventions for kids. Here's the deal, guys. It works. We get kids across, by the way, the graduation rate was 77%. 77%, we're at 92, 93, 94 now. So what we do, the reason why we do it, is for the kids and getting kids across the finish line. I thank everybody every year at graduation because I know what it takes from our teachers at every single level to do that. And sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you get frustrated. Sometimes you've had enough with that kid. We know that. But when you've had enough with that kid, sometimes there's another spot that kid can go to have success. And why do we do that? 100% because it's the right thing to do for the over 2,000 kids we have here at Beekmantown. That's why we do what we do. Even if it's frustrating to some, we know that it's successful. It's very successful for the student population. So that, any questions on student data? Any feedback from the board? How do you think about our students? What do you think about our student data? What do you think we need to do? Does it match what you've heard about our student data?
Sounds like we're doing good.
I think the teachers and the admin and everybody's doing great. Always room for improvement, right? Thank you.
Always, but it looks like we've improved from that 77% up to the 94, 95, 96. Something's going right.
Thank you, Pat.
I'll just say, it's red, but I'm loud enough anyway, right? I think that, I appreciate everything that the administrators do and teachers, because I think that over time, providing more opportunities, we're reaching more students. And it's not just the academics sitting in the classroom. It's the experiences, it's the engagement, and I think that is so incredibly powerful when you're reaching kids and it's really getting to their interest. It's not just sitting on the desk writing. And I think that it's great. It's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So this one we're not going to put on the board. This is a draft. This is a draft of our long-term budget analysis, and we will scan it and send it to you. I apologize I don't have it we don't put this on the board right now. We will in a couple months because we don't have all the data, so it's just like preliminary. So it's ever-changing. We just don't want to confuse people or the public, but we want to update the board on this. Jen, why don't you start the pieces here?
Just what you guys wanted, more numbers. I'll make it really painless. These are, just to go over this is very preliminary, very, very preliminary. We've got very few numbers to go on yet. It's early, but we do like to get this conversation started. So we're looking at the forecast for 23-24 for next year. I'm going to go over the revenues and a few of the expenditures, and then Mr. Mannix will take over from there. So shared services and other, you'll see that $1.5 million. That consists of a lot of things. There's interest income, tuition, miscellaneous revenue. We bill Clinton County for pre-K services, rental properties, sales, scrap metal. So there's a lot of things in that number. Pilots, that's an estimate. I don't have confirmation from the county yet, but I do believe that's actually going to go up because we just got a new pilot last week. Yeah. So I'm waiting for confirmation on those numbers from the county, Clinton County Treasurer's Office. They'll give me that info. I've already requested it. Usually takes them a couple weeks. So I'll have that number firmed up. State aid, as you can see, $25.5 million. You can see from the previous year we were at 22. This number includes, we did a rollover of, because our state aid runs don't come out until April 1st, so this is really preliminary, but we took our number from last year and we added in our foundation aid number that's going to be making us whole, which we received from a state report. From all indications, we are getting this money. They are going to make us whole, and that number is $3.3 million.
And that's important here. We've been underfunded by millions of dollars for 10 years or so, more than 10 years. So for the state to finally come back and get us to be fully funded underneath that formula, that's why we're having a decent boost last year and an anticipated decent boost this year. So all that good work we're doing was with less funds than most of the other schools around here get per student.
So as far as we can see, that number is going to be coming, but again, it will not be sent by, the governor will give us her final runs on April 1st. So that won't be finalized until then, but this is the number we're using for the forecast at this point. The levy, again, I have so few numbers to work with that I haven't even been able to give you a levy limit estimate because we don't have any numbers for it yet. I don't have the pilots. I don't have our county increase. I don't have anything yet.
Well, we have one number.
The CPI is 2%,
yes,
but that's it, which I can't calculate a tax cap
right.
with just that. So as soon as I get more numbers, I will definitely start our preliminary, but right now we're just using 2%. So we just did a flat 2% at the moment. Then we move on to appropriated reserves. So that $250,000 is actually it comes from our debt service. So our debt service can be used to offset your debt. That's the only thing it can be used for. So you have capital projects. If you don't use all the money at the end of your capital project, it rolls into your debt service, and that debt service can only be used to offset the debt payments that you have. There is no other legal use to use it for. So we're going to be using about $250,000 to offset our budget, and then the $2 million is coming from fund balance. And as you can see, we're over the years, we increased this significantly, and now we're going to try and go back down to the normal, which we usually are at 1.5, 1.6 million. So we're going to slowly decrease so we don't have any spikes in tax rates or anything like that. We try and keep as consistent as possible. So that's the revenue side. Any questions on the revenue at this point? It is very preliminary. We have our best estimates so far. And then we move down to expenditures. I'm just going to field the first few. We do a rollover budget, salary and retirement mandates. I did a brief analysis of our current salaries and did a percentage, 3.5% on top of them. It's not precise. I haven't done a complete rollover budget yet. And then the only number we do have, TRS, is giving an estimate right now of an increase of 10%. Or that is their rate. Last year it was 10.5, so that's actually going down a little bit, but our salaries are going up, so in the end it'll probably be a little, our TRS will go up by a small margin. Programming, that we put in there for if we have additional programs, then we need additional people. So right now we have a placeholder of 200,000. That could change as we get into the budget season. If we find we need, say we find we need another kindergarten class, that we know we have an influx of more kindergartners coming in, then that may change. But
Darcy can hear you.
I know. She's like, no.
Yeah, so there's programming, and then there's an adversity and enrollment increases, which should also go in there. We've had a number of students enroll from the new housing complex over by Hannaford, behind Hannaford, over by, there's another store over there.
It's by Lenny's, it's
by
off of
Lenny's.
the Tom Miller Road.
Right. So there's a number of students that have just moved in there that are coming here. We also have a number of ELL students. We've doubled our ELL students as English language learners. It was about 8 years ago we received our first ELL student from Morocco. I remember vividly. Now we have, Nick is at 15 ELL students, and they're coming every day. Another thing we're preparing for when we talk about adversity is the farms have been all brought up, and then you can see that the construction going on by the Northway, and they're actually building housing there, and we'll receive students, workers will come there, live there, and they'll have kids with them, and sometimes those kids are migrant students, so they require a lot of services, rightly so. So there's a lot of different pieces to adversity. The other thing was we had one family move in, and this is an estimate, but I think they had 3 or 4 special education students, which didn't, 1 or 2 students may have been residential students. So when they're residential student means they don't go to school here, they go someplace else for their schooling, and we pay the bill, but sometimes we're able to charge another school district for that, depending on whether the kid's a foster kid or what. So there's a lot of different factors you have to be prepared for when you build a budget. That's why we build a budget with diversity funding in it. This is all preliminary, but that's what we're thinking. Equipment, materials, and supplies, a $50,000 increase. Obviously, the price of everything has gone up, including fuel, oil, diesel, and gas. So that's a $250,000 increase there. We are fortunate for a number of years to have that pretty low, but it's definitely moving up. Jen was really great. Also, when things were spiking, she locked in. I think it was last year at a much lower rate when things really got high.
Yes, we were at a fixed rate. We lucked out. We did the fixed rate instead of the variable, and the year started and it was low, so we fixed it at that rate and we're able to keep it. Thank goodness. This year, our bids aren't in from BOCES. We actually go out to bid with BOCES to get a better rate. And we just sent in our capacities of what we're thinking we're going to use, and we should have our bids back by March. So we'll see what they're at.
Then CDES, special education, they actually won't take very many, if any, of our students. But we also now slashed in residential. for students that get are replaced or distributed to residential. So it's another. It's not at all surprising to see residential cost be way over $100,000. This is a big one, guys. This is the big one right here, and we're lucky that we're lucky as a school district to hopefully be made whole with state aid. But the health insurance increase this year, which would normally cripple us and might cripple our neighbors, is going to be, I believe, 10%. A 10% increase on health insurance premiums. Everybody who takes health insurance, their rate's going to go up 10%. That's a huge number for us, and usually that puts districts in a position where they have to reduce programming or certainly not add any programming. The reason why is simply because of, as I would say to you, the monopoly by the UVM Health Network. Now, they're obviously sprinkling some inflation that we're all dealing with, but the monopoly that they've created, and they're literally buying up offices and closing some offices and employing people. I talked to one doctor who helped CVPH through the UVM network establish his type of expertise within CVPH. CVPH then had the audacity to go and offer his people locally $100,000 more per year for their salaries for a doctor's office that was servicing young women and older women for the medical needs, and now he has to close his doors and move to Saranac Lake. And it was a thriving doctor's office that got bought up only to move that in-house. There was no need to do that other than they want to control that. And once they control it, you're going to be in trouble. Now, I know somebody personally who they used to have this service for an operation on their heart. We pride ourselves on heart operations right here at CVPH, the cardiac unit. They needed a cardiac heart surgery, and they had to go to UVM. Why? UVM charges more over there. So you go over there. Maybe it's a better doctor. I don't know. But you're going to pay. We're going to pay more. Actually, health insurance is health insurance. You're not going to pay more because of your health insurance, but we're going to pay more, and then that will drive up the premiums. So that's really serious. And if you hear anything about the UVM monopoly, it's real, and it's going to suck money out of education and into the pockets of the UVM staff. It should be noted that they're claiming that they're not bankrupt, but that they can't pay their bills. Yet their CEO had a bonus, not a salary, but a bonus of $1.5 million. So that tells me that everything's going to plan, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt rural North Country, and we know that this is the game plan across rural America. So if you do a simple Google search or look at New York Times, this is what's happening all over America with major medical really overcharging in rural spots in America. So it's happening here, and we need to advocate to have that to stop. BOCES admin increase because it's going up 10%, because BOCES health insurance is going up 10%. They always tie the admin increase to the biggest expense in their admin increase is their health insurance. So that's why that's going to go up 10%. BOCES CV Tech type of offerings, we're putting a $300,000 increase there. Last year was $200,000, the year before was $135,000. And then Jen, why don't you finish up with the last three? Oh wait, buses. I'll do buses and you can do the last two. So this is more inflation. And we're really worried about the electric buses that we're going to have to purchase. We've talked about that at Operations Committee. Shocking to me, I don't know why, but our buses are going to cost on average about $42,000 more per bus this year. Is that the right number? $43,000 per bus this year. And we're going to need 4 buses because we're out on the roads. We have a lot more kids. So that's why that's up $172. Nice thing is we'll receive about 80 cents on the dollar back per bus for that in state aid.
Yeah.
Classes.
Also, I wanted to address, I am very concerned about the electric buses because we ordered 4 buses last year out of last year's budget, or the current year we're in July. Actually, they were ordered by the end of June. Our order was put in. We still don't have those buses. Okay, so they're not building gas buses in a timely manner. It really worries me that we're supposed to have a fleet of electric buses in the next few years when our first bus will be coming Monday. They have one ready for us. And this is a huge problem because we have buses that we've already taken off the road because they're no longer working. We're not putting any more money into them because it's not worth us putting more money into them because we were counting on those buses to be here. Normally they're here by July, August at the latest. So we're now in January and we still don't have one of the 4 buses that we were. So it is very concerning. And then the final 2, debt service on past projects. So this is what our borrowings that we've had throughout our capital projects through the years. It's a principal and interest payments that they fluctuate just a little. We try and not have them fluctuate a lot, so therefore we don't have any big dips or rises in our budget. We try and stay very consistent with that. And then open enrollment for insurance, we put in for 3 family plans. It's just an estimate that we'll put in to see if anybody hops on or if new employees come that previous employee didn't have it, but they do get it. We put in a buffer there. And that's about it.
Any questions on the preliminary 5-year fiscal forecast? Thank you.
Go President. Okay. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody here for public comment? Nobody? No takers. Okay. On to presentations, reports. Actually. Semantics.
Pass.
Jen.
I'm good as well.
Okay. I think you're finally up.
Yeah. Turn the mic on.
You've been so patient.
No, you're all set. I think I'm good. Sweet.
Okay.
All right, let's get right into this. It's going to be a bunch of fun. All right, we'll start off with the high school today. So the high school had a really productive Superintendent's Day on Tuesday, January 3rd. The staff engaged in Arcane training, DAX report, updates, and school safety collaborations and updates. CPR first training, social emotional learning circle ups, conducted by our counseling team, engaging teaching strategies taught by their peers, and time to collaborate with specific content, area development, and changes in the next generation learning standards. I want to thank all the staff for engaging attentively throughout the entire day, and the staff who presented these wonderful opportunities. So during 2 separate faculty meetings, the entire high school faculty collaborated on ways to improve the current attendance rate of 92% to pre-pandemic rates of like 94 to 95. Mr. Bazzaio discussed with the faculty the punitive strategies of attendance letters, attendance hearings, CPS referrals, PCAF, and PINS referrals, guard, caseload, home visits, teacher, counselor, administration phone calls, and instructional support meetings already being implemented daily to shed light on current ways the school is addressing our absent students. Mr. Bazzaio is also working with the Student Leadership Council, which I'm a part of, a whole bunch of fun by the way, to develop a mentoring program that would connect our student leaders with students who struggle to attend school in hopes to create a positive connection. Mr. Bazzaio is also working directly with Mrs. McCullough to develop an ELO student center where students have time to who have shown to miss high rates of school will be invited to attend this. Space would kind of provide a solace for these students to engage with their peers, get caught up on some work, and create a safe space for them. It's kind of the whole like community culture idea. We're looking for our student leaders also to be a part of the student center to help build a rapport with students who miss high rates of high school. One last quick note, January Regents Week begins on Tuesday the 24th and runs until Friday the 27th. That's all I have for the high school. Moving on to the middle school. On December 22nd, BMS had our first day of service. Our students participated in a variety of activities that were both fun and served various members of our community. There's a whole bunch of these, so I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible. Just kidding, there's a whole bunch of good ones. I'll detail them briefly. So there's 100 chemo care packages that with the Fitzpatrick Cancer Center, 22 wreaths for the residents of Meadowbrook, 75 law enforcement survival kits to the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, 50 handmade cards of encouragement to patients and mental health unit at CBPH. 100 books delivered to the JCEO for their Head Start program. Countless numbers of cookies made by our students and delivered to teachers, custodians, other staff. Holiday door hangers to the workers in the sterilization department at CBPH. And students also rang, 48 students rang the bell for the Salvation Army Kettle Drive. 50 students read stories to elementary students at BES. Mrs. Bassett's third graders worked with middle school students on a STEM project and were able to make it, were able to take it home with them. There is a slideshow with pictures of our day in the middle school lobby as well. On the Superintendent's Conference Day, middle school teachers were trained in Narcan and received an update on DASA. Additionally, middle school content area teams continue to analyze data and develop strategies and plans to support student growth and enrichment. This month's SOAR Day theme is perseverance. Through group activities and discussion, students will learn about perseverance and reflect on strategies they will use to overcome challenges they face day to day and how they can work to attain a goal. This month, the middle school will be administering the FastBridge assessments for math, ELA, and SEL as well. Moving on to the Cumberland Head School. Upon returning back from vacation, teachers were involved again with Superintendent's Day, involved in different training sessions. Some took part in the Eureka Math 2 implementation training. Some continued the work over the summer that was started with writing science curriculum based on the Next Gen standards and Generation Genius. Interventionists trained on programs called Phonics for reading and had the opportunity to take part in an online course from Yale Center for Dyslexia. AIDS counselors and psychologists participated in a presentation on laws surrounding inclusion and dealing with big emotions. Teachers gave a lot of great feedback on that day and enjoyed the time they spent working with their colleagues. Coming up this week, both Cumberland Head and BES elementary teachers had the opportunity to take part in an after-school training titled Just Another Hour for Eureka Math 2. Teachers who chose to participate will learn the digital platform and will have the opportunity to ask follow-up questions to the January 3rd training. The training will be a live interactive virtual event. Later in the month, also, the Math Curriculum Adoption Committee will meet to make a final recommendation as to whether we will be adopting this updated version of Eureka Math. So far, this has been a super positive feedback from the teachers from those piloting the program. The next CHS Eagle Pride Assembly will be Friday the 13th. Each teacher will be nominating one student for the Wall of Pride who exhibits kindness. Students who earn up to 100 talent tickets will also be recognized. In December, some students chose popcorn, pups, and principal as a reward. Students were treated to popcorn with Principal Savager, while all three of the BCSD therapy dogs performed some impressive dog tricks. We look forward to doing that again in January. And lastly, I have the elementary school from Beekmantown. The week of Christmas, the Sunshine Committee held an appreciation breakfast for our bus drivers. We hosted our winter concert and our Singing Santa presentation as well. We also offered a Holly Jolly Lane event. We're grateful to our PTO for their continued support to our students and families. At the end of the month, we'll be hosting another Pastries with Parents with the addition of Coloring with a Cop. The elementary spelling bee was held last Friday as well. And we are pleased to announce that Chloe Miller and Lexi, pardon me if I mispronounce this, but Sulia, I believe, will represent BES at the regional spelling bee on March 13th at Peru High School. Lily Gold and Addison Dixon Vosh are the alternatives and will be in attendance as well. The regional winner will move on to nationals in Washington, D.C. Much time has been dedicated to updating our routines and procedures in the cafe as well. The lunch monitors were given a training on January 3rd on conscious and unconscious choking, as well as incorporating new routines for our cafeteria. Changes include smoother transitions to lunch tables, visuals for expectation, and use of the smart board and the use of the lights to encourage volume control. We kicked off January with a productive staff development day. Teachers were in various trainings. Again, the Eureka Math Squared virtual training, Genius curriculum, goal setting, inclusion and student independence training, development milestones, digital dig, and a dyslexia training are samples of this day. The dedication shown by teachers and staff is evidence of the continued high expectations for our students. Lastly, in order to better support our students' social and emotional needs, we've instituted 2 locations for students to reset and ensure they are ready to learn. Zones of regulation and other strategies are being used to support our students in locations called the Nest and the Zone. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I'm going to remember those names because I might have my child there. Okay. Thank you very much. On to committee reports. First one, audit committee. Actually, that's me. So we met on December 20th to review October and November financial reports. We did an overview. And a lot of times we end up discussing cafeteria because that's always been an issue of how can we increase meal intake and the financial offset of that. So total breakfasts and lunches served as of November 30th were 54,383 and 75,369 respectively, for a percentage increase of 38% for breakfast, 18.2% for lunch from the previous year. So it's just kind of showing you that things are slowly getting back to a pre-pandemic state. Snack program has been reinstated, which resulted in 103,833 snacks being served through November 30th. In addition, we talked about the air filter system used by school, grant-funded staff's professional development, and the availability of crisis counselors at BHSN. We talked about some various options being offered at cafeteria and how the breakfast numbers are up because students are now able to eat in the classroom. So just overall, I think there's a level of normalcy since we're out of COVID. And our next committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 28th. Anybody have any specific questions on audit? It's more numbers, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know, not enough. Okay, moving on, safety committee.
So we met on December 14th, very lively discussion. We discussed the active shooter drill, all the comments, what happened during it. We spoke about doors being locked. We talked about perimeters, the maps, cell phones. That was something I thought was interesting. Some of the law enforcement cell phones worked, some did not. So they're looking at that problem and stuff. Feedback was very good. We spoke about the locking doors with the magnets. And somebody actually showed me that tonight so I could see what it looked like. We talked about students being spoken to about not letting anyone that they don't know in if they see somebody at the doors and stuff. Let's see. Fastest ways to get the doors locked. Having a universal plan that everybody understands. We talked about the ability to lock side doors, bathroom doors, janitor closets. Probably doors that don't have locks on them now, but if you have the license place, where's a good place to go? We talked about sport team practices. So we talked about doors being open on the back side of the gym that are propped open with chairs and everything. And if anybody was really watching those while they were doing the practice and stuff. We talked about during the winter with those doors open, heating the outside instead of having the heat stay inside, especially with the expense of the heating. They're working on a solution, just keep maybe one door open.
Hey, Patty, it's been implemented. They got it.
Oh, they already did?
Gary, Rick, and Justin got it implemented.
Oh, thank you. Good job, Justin. We also talked about, I guess Gary discussed an app called the Raptor, and he explained what the app was and how it can go on the teachers or the admin cell phones or the computers,
and how this could help you if there was an active shooter or if something was going on. So there was a lot of discussion on that. And,
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Thanks. That's a big one.
Yeah, so good.
So that's been implemented as well, and so this is what the app, when you download it, it looks like, and it has the icons that match our emergencies here. So anybody can download this app. One cool feature here is there's team assist. So sometimes when the kid's acting up, you walk over the phone and call, and the kid knows someone can actually call in the office. This, you can just hit your phone and get team assist, which would notify somebody in the building that you need a little help. But the other ones are, for the first time, and we work with law enforcement through the active shooter, for the first time, staff can activate that they want to lock down instantaneously to have it. Now, they don't have access to push the button and put the whole place in lockdown. That's in the principal's office. But the staff has the ability to say, we need to go and lock down with the push of a button. This isn't mandatory, but if you want to have a safer school, or if safety is one of your concerns, this is a great app to have. It's been implemented in all 4 buildings, I believe.
So they've done a lot of the training on it and everything. Is that something we talked about too?
I think it's
ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing. There's stuff. Gary's pumping out a lot of information, and we're just in the infancy stages of this, but he's going to go to each faculty meeting now as well. He's already been each.
Yeah, Gary gave a really good presentation.
Yeah, and he's going to go back and follow up now.
Yeah. So, and then the last we discussed was for the future. We discussed the community gym being open to the public. We talked about an access button, and that's for the door for the playgrounds. We talked about outside groups coming into the school, such as like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, using our building, security around that, and we talked about CPR and first aid for teacher aides, and that's all going to be in our next meeting, which we haven't set yet. That's it. Questions?
With the app that's Raptor, is there like any faults, like if there's...
Yeah, so the nice thing, over time, actually a few years ago, more than just a few, maybe 4 years ago, I'm not quite sure, the school district allowed teachers to call a lockdown and to hack it. And they really went into lockdown. And we were worried about that, where, now all of a sudden every parent's worried, and you locked down, and it took hours and hours and hours away from instruction. But since then, the state police have said that they can realize within about 5 minutes whether it's a real lockdown or not, because of the number of calls that would be going into 911. So, for instance, if you think it's a lockdown, and you're wrong, most other people around you aren't going to think it's a lockdown. So you just don't have the 100 calls in 911, there's an active shooter. So now they feel like they have the data at their office to say, hey, we know somebody called lockdown, or Matt called a lockdown, but it doesn't look real. So you can get out of it much faster than having to do a total sweep and evacuation. So that was good feedback by the state police. Great feedback.
Yeah, everybody asked a lot of questions at the safety committee, and they got a lot of answers and stuff, so which is good. Another one, I just wanted to mention one more thing. We also talked about when you were locking the doors, if there was an active shooter or something was going on in the school, and how everybody has to be very vigilant to check the hallways before you lock those doors with a magnet, to make sure that every student or anyone, that everybody's doing a sweep, to make sure that you can save as many as you can of the students, get them into your classrooms and get them safe. That's it.
Okay, all right, very thorough, thank you. On to number 6. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the following minutes. May I have a motion, please?
I'll motion, Abby.
Who's first?
I agree.
Okay. Patty?
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the CSEA, CPSE, and 504 recommendations dated January 10th, 2023. May I have a motion?
Motion, John.
Second?
Second, Chris.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, resignations, termination, appointments, and retirements, be and are hereby approved. May I have a motion?
I'll motion it.
Second.
Second?
John.
Any questions, concerns, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 9. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, MOA with support staff, fingerprinting reimbursement, MOU with support staff supervisors association for ELD, school food service director, be and are hereby approved. In motion.
Motion, Greg.
And second?
I'll second Patty.
Questions, discussion?
Who are we referring to on the support staff here?
The fingerprint reimbursement? Anybody, so it's been, support staff doesn't make a, jump in if I get into this wrong. Support staff, some of those employees don't have like a bank account, and it costs like $100 or a little bit more to have fingerprints. So people that may want a job, they can't come up with the cash to do that. So we'll reimburse them the $108 to get fingerprinted so you can come work here. It's the way to open the door for employees. You get that right?
Yeah. We've had a couple people that we would have loved to have hired right away, but they have to wait until they have enough money to get the fingerprints done.
Gotcha.
Kind of incentive to
Yes,
recruit people.
correct.
Any other questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the following policies. Therapy dogs in schools, student harassment, bullying, prevention, intervention, regulation.
I'll motion, Doug.
Who's that, Doug?
Yep. I'll second.
Any questions, issues, or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda: financial reports, transfers and purchase of services, interagency agreement with Champlain Valley Family Center, be and are hereby approved. May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second.
All right. Have a roll call, please.
Drake Bean. Douglas Beebe. John Fairchild.
Yes.
Christopher Gadway.
Yes.
Patty LaFlemme.
Yes.
Ed Marin. Nicole Pupor.
Yes.
Richard Sears.
Yes.
David Trudeau.
Yes.
Motion passes. I think we're at 12. Additional items to discuss?
Yeah, can we change the order of those two on this one? We're talking about the palette first.
I don't see why not.
Okay. I don't know if I sent it to just Ed and Nicole, if I sent it to everybody. I will resend this. There's a company that wants to have an electric line to come through the Canadian border. It's probably from Hydro-Quebec. We've seen these before. These never materialize. They come through the Canadian border and they go to New York City or to Hartford, Connecticut, or Boston. And that company would like a payment in lieu of taxes, which is a pilot. So they don't want any taxes on it. They want a sure number. That actually hurts the district because that number, it looks like cash coming in, but you subtract it from from your tax cap calculation, it doesn't have any value to us. But it has tremendous value to the company. There are other ways to handle the pilot. Actually, these buildings were given to us by a company that engaged in a host community agreement, which is another way to have some type of agreement when a company moves into your district. Our lawyer says that he thinks that this is what they're seeking through the Clayton County Development Corp is undervalued and has given a greater value to this by just looking at the land. One thing that I know that we looked at last time when this came through was how much electricity is going through the line and the value of that electricity. And even if you just, fraction that out of a minuscule amount of the profit they're going to make, it's a big number for the district. So that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to send you the lawyer's opinion again. If I haven't already, I apologize, for you to look at, and it's a conversation we can have moving forward. The lawyer will object to the pilot, which just means we can then negotiate or fight it, or at some point if we're all like, no, let's not fight it, let's be super friendly, then we can just withdraw our objection. Okay? Anything else on that? Okay. So attendance issues. So I had said that there's board members believe that there's attendance issue. I know, Chris, you sent an email, which I appreciate.
Yep.
So what are the attendance issues?
Well, basically a discussion off. Mr. Kater gave a good presentation at the end of last year that we didn't really do too much about. It was a little disturbing. He had several kids miss over 50 or 60 days, and I believe a couple over 100. Is that correct?
Not 100, but
close to it.
I don't believe it was close to 100. I could look back, but I definitely had students over 50 days.
Yeah. I know we don't have a policy here or anything to deal with the number of absences. So.
Well, we do have a policy on that, and we do act on that policy. Is there any, before we stop on that, I don't know what other attendance issues are out there with the board. So I appreciate that. It's great. We'll answer that in a second. Are there other attendance issues that you want to bring to light?
How many days are we allowing kids to miss and still passing and or graduating them?
Okay. Anything else? So I saw that in the email as well. Good question. So in the packet, I have I can put this on PowerPoint if you want to. In this packet, we've tried to put things into context. So there's slides. I'll put them on the board if you'd like, or we can just go through them. The slides say, I guess we'll put it on the board because there's no other way to get it to them. So there's two slides. The first two slides, one is from the New York State School Boards Association. New York State School Boards Association, their December issue, they had they recognize attendance as a big issue everywhere. For instance, in Ohio, they're at 30%. 30% of their students are not in school every day. So they put that chart on there. See if I can get this up. So yeah, it's that first page. And then I had another article from the Post. So New York City last year had 40% of their students were not in school every day, and their goal was to get it to 30%. Only 30, so having 70% of their students in school every day.
And then you take a look at, and I'm just trying to give you context, this isn't a Beekmantown problem, and I want to give you context into it is a Beekmantown problem, but it isn't solely a Beekmantown problem, and I want to give you an idea of what's happening around the country, and then what's happening here at Beekmantown, and we can look at the size of the problem, and then also address Dave's question and some other questions. I highlighted on the next slide the data from school innovations and achievement showed that chronic absenteeism has increased by more than a third from March of 20 to 21. So 1 year it's gone up 30%, which is concerning. And then here's more national, just more data on skyrocketing attendance issues in Vegas and Connecticut and New York City. So I try to show you that in Ohio it's soared to 30%. So this actually parallels what the New York State School Boards Association, so they're up to 30% in Ohio from 17%. 17% is an unacceptable number, right? So I thought we'd pull the data and say, what are attendance issues and why? So our aides and monitors are out 91% of the time, not 90%. Our students are here 92%, and I've rounded these numbers. 92% of the time. Our teachers contract employees here 93% of our time. Our administrative contracting are 98% of the time. We've written an ELT grant so that we can try to be here the goal was to be here 95% of the time. And we achieved that years ago. So 92 is, for students, is an unacceptable number, right? But I think that number, when you put it into context, is a significant number. We want to do something to get it up, right? But we also take a look at what's going on around us with the sickness. With sicknesses. This is the first time in the history where when you've gotten sick, you have to stay home for 5 or 10 or more days. This is the first time in history where we had a triple, I don't even know what they call it, was SARS and the flu and COVID. So as you see on our next slide, when you take a look at the data, who's our biggest attendance issues? Who's our biggest attendance issue? Everybody gets this wrong. Everybody gets this wrong. Right? Not in school. If you don't come to school, we're going to fail you. Well, number one is pre-K. Our pre-K kids were here the first part of the year, are not here more than 40% of the time. Why? Because of that sickness. These sicknesses are impacting them more than COVID. Number 2 on that list is K, right? It was like 30-something%. So if you factor those out, we probably go up to about 93%. If those kids don't count, that's where we're going to go. And then the third is our 12th graders. And then it's really close between almost all other grades. Our best grade, ironically, for attendance is our first graders, so which is a super important year for teaching reading. So I'm glad about that. So my point, and then we looked at what are some of the things we can do to improve attendance. And I don't want to go through all those. I'm glad to hear what Devin said. Number 1 on the tiers is having a connection with somebody in the school gets kids to school, right? Having it something that you love to do at school gets kids to school. We know that when we wrote that grant, we wanted kids running in the door, not out the door. And we saw our attendance improve from 93 to 95% prior to the pandemic. We want to get it back. It's an issue. We want 95%. We've been written in books during the pandemic, Beekmantown Central, about how good our attendance was. We shouldn't lose sight of that. I've said to the union, this is a shared journey. This is not going to improve by pointing out the problem and identifying it. Problem identifiers don't solve attendance issues. Problem solvers do. And we need to do something together to help kids understand how to come to school more often. Now, you mentioned something that probably was happening when you were in school. Is that what you mentioned, Ed?
Actually, I have a niece who graduated last year who missed 30 days of school, and she was allowed to graduate.
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel that's right, and that's a family member of mine.
Hard.
So, like, what's our policy now?
Yeah.
On days missed?
So, I mean, certainly during the pandemic, we had people who didn't even want to miss one day of school who fought the other
Not
day.
talking pandemic numbers.
No, well,
That's,
we are. Okay, but so previously, Chris, you mentioned 20 days.
Well, it used to be 20-something years ago.
Right. So in your folder, I think in your folder, is a commissioner's decision. And in that commissioner's decision, there was, it's pretty well laid out, that idea of regardless of the absences back then, that was deemed to be not legal, right? So, we do know that there are things that have happened that didn't comply with regulations, and that was probably one. That's not to say that the board couldn't amend their attendance policy and stop getting credit once you don't reach a certain number of days. I think it's awful arbitrary off the facts.
Well, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong, but there should definitely be some sort of intervention or discipline. I'm not talking about failing kids. Obviously, we're here to move them along. We want them to succeed.
Awesome. Yeah.
I just wanted to know the steps that we're doing.
Perfect.
Break it down.
Perfect. I think in there you'll see 3 letters.
I did read some.
Those are referred to by parents as the nasty grams. They don't like those letters. So at I think it's 7, 14, and 20 days they get those. We looked at the data, and we actually know, Chris, that a student gets 21 days of being absent. This is back, 10 years ago. We looked at all the data 10 years ago, and if a student reached 21 days, if a student missed 19 days, it was like an average student. Like there was no real differential, oddly, in their achievement. But at 21, they just fell off the map. And maybe it's because they just missed more after 21. But 21 or more, kids were dropping out, kids were failing Regents exams and just having poor academic achievement. So what are some of the other things we do besides send the nasty grams and give the parent, there's a note in there that we send to parents that was just updated. What are some of the other things we do for kids that are absent? I was told we don't do attendance hearings. We do attendance hearings. We ask principals, do you do attendance hearings? Shake your head, yes. Associate principal. So attendance hearing is where you bring the kid in, you hope to have a parent come in, you usually have a parent come in if you're lucky, and you talk about how this isn't right. Now, before, this is really important, right? Before, we used to be able to take kids to court. And we did. We took kids to court to a judge, and the judge would say, you get your butt to school or you're going to go to the claim, because usually the kid has something else too hanging over him. We can't do that anymore, right? I reached out to a judge, had a conversation. We're trying to make attendance better. I had to reach out to a judge because we're struggling with social services. Social services, and John's shaking his head, they don't take these cases anymore. It says in our board policy that the teacher or a school official, not just on the teachers, will call social services when they get to a period of educational neglect. We call all the time. We've had one case that took us a year of calling for them to accept. I called the judge and said, because social services doesn't do this, is there anything that we can do to push kids on that negative consequence side with law enforcement? Not in our county. That was the answer. Not in our county. So that's real conversations with the sitting judge. And you know that to be true, right? Where you were?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Times have definitely changed, and that's not a priority at this point in time.
How do we fix it here?
Yeah.
As in, how is it fair for Johnny to miss 40 days and still move on to 10th grade, which, I'm not saying like Chris, we should be failing kids, but Susie, who's here all 180 days and working her butt off, and she's getting the same as the kid that doesn't want to come to school because he just doesn't want to come to school.
Right.
And we're still rewarding those kids.
And that's, so you do have to pass a Regents exam. That's the nice thing in high school, right? to get those credits, like that eligible credit. And we can go through the credits that you have to pass to get that loan, right? But why don't we, I don't want to put people on the spot, and then if you guys have questions, if you keep your questions coming to me, I'm going to ask my employees some questions about what they do so they can share with you. But I know that we do a lot. And, there's an idea out there that I've been told, and I'm hoping there's a growth mindset, because this isn't, I don't believe that this, and if it is a viable solution, we would obviously look at it and potentially do it. Okay? But I don't believe this is a viable solution. Okay? We go in the Wayback Machine. It used to be 20, if you miss 20 days in some places, you didn't get any credit, you're gone. Right? We go in the Wayback Machine. I used to talk to the truancy officer in Plattsburgh. I forgot his name, but he was a great guy. Because he used to come, if we were playing ball over at Broad Street, he'd come over and say hi and make connections with kids. Truancy officers don't exist right now for a lot of reasons, one of which is, what are they going to do? Where are they going to bring? What are they going to bring? Okay, so what do we do besides go out and knock on doors? What do we do besides send a nasty gram? What do we do besides have not superintendent's hearings on this, but to have attendance hearings on this? Matt, I'm going to put you on the spotlight first. What are some of the things you do? And then maybe talk about the conversation you had with your staff and some of the things you're going to do. And I know, trying not to touch, Devin already addressed some of the stuff.
So, I mean, this is definitely the forefront. We've been working pretty hard trying to combat this. This is something that's been going on across the state, the nation. It's not just Beekmantown, but this is probably what we want to address, and we're working to do that. Some of the things that we already do, right? There's a lot of punitive measures that we have in place right now. So the things that we talked about with the attendance letter. So when a student is absent for 7 days, that's unexcused or excused absences, they get a letter home. So letter home basically states that your son or daughter has been missed 7 days of school. They're at risk for, basically meeting high school standards and graduating, right? Because if you're not in school, it's hard to pass 3 exams at the standard County you need to pass. At 14, we have what we call an attendance hearing. So basically what that is a meeting with the admin, the parent, and that student to go over an action plan of how to get that student to school. What do we need to do? What supports do we need to put into play to help your child and you be successful and come to school? Right? We go to the extent with a lot of those kids is we send the SROs out to the house. We send our guards out to the house, knock on the door, pick them up. One of the things we do in the attendance hearings that's difficult is that you call to set up the hearing, parent doesn't answer, right? You can't get a hold of anybody to get the hearing set up for a meeting. So what we've started to do is on that attendance letter, our SRO goes to the house, they knock on the door, and they say, here is the date of your letter, here's the time you're going to come for your attendance hearing, the date and time, you need to be there. That's shown to help a little bit, not perfect, right? You saw parents that just blow it off and not do it. I've gotten nasty phone calls saying, why you send the SRO off to my house? Because we want your kid in school, right? We do PSAP referrals, right? So PSAP referrals are, basically, intervention services from DSS that can come in, give them some different structures within there to get the kid to come to school. The DSS worker can work with us to maybe pick that kid up from school if they miss the bus or they're not coming. We work together there. But a lot of times they just don't take a PSAP referral based on attendance. You got to have a behavior that goes along with that. You got to have something other than just attendance for them to fall through with a PSAP referral. The reason being is DSS is overwhelmed, right? DSS can't. And a lot of times what happens is with DSS is that we have a PSAP referral in place, but they haven't been in the house. It's been a month since that PSAP referral has been in place. They haven't been in the house, so they can't get a hold of anybody at the house to make that connection with the parent, right? So that's a barrier for us too. So the hard part for us is once you have a PSAP referral, you can move to a PINS, right? PINS is a person in need of services, which is more towards the court system that you can put in play. But the issue is you have to go through the PSAP referral first to get to a PINS, right? So if the DSS worker hasn't been out to the house, it's been a month, right? They haven't got to the house and made contact with anybody. It's hard to move to a PINS, right? So those are some of the barriers. We are doing that. We are doing PINS referrals. We're doing PSAP referrals. We are doing all of these. I can show you the list of students that we have on PINS and PSAP referrals that we are doing. We gave the guards caseloads. I gave them caseloads of certain students that are not here that have missed 10 or more days And when they watch that. If the kid's not here, we send them out to the house to pick them up. Knock on the door, send them out. A lot of times they don't come to the door. They won't come out, right? So you're fighting that battle of sending one of our guards, right? So here's the dilemma you work on with this too, right? You're sending a guard that's here for our safety of our kids to a house to get one student, right? That's a dilemma for me, right? So, but we are doing those things because we know attendance has been in the forefront and it's something that we want to improve. We have phone calls. I call any kid that has sports team. I make phone calls. Our counselors make phone calls. Our administrative team makes phone calls. Teachers are making phone calls. They're emailing. We're trying to make contact with those parents. We have what we call IST meetings, instructional support team meetings for students that aren't coming to school. So we come up with a plan, an action plan for those students specifically to try to get them to school, right? So those are the punitive things, right? We are doing those on a daily basis throughout the day to do that, right?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I just want to make something very clear. I do not think anybody in our faculty or administration is at fault at all. It is not their fault that these kids don't come to school. And like, I almost feel like we're more at fault because of like, what is our policy? Do you have a written policy?
Yeah, you have a policy. It's in your bold. No.
That's kind of what he's discussing right now.
Yeah, so there's no certain amount of days, right? There's not saying if you miss 40 days of school, you don't go to the next grade, right? I think that gets very dangerous. Okay, the reason being, if a kid misses, say they miss 20 days in the first part of the school year, right? They could be sick. They could be, that's 20 school days. Excuse, right? We're talking about 30 days. You lost that kid for the rest of the year. That kid's not coming to school for the whole rest of the year. What is that kid going to do? You think that kid's going to come back in 10th grade and do the work and come back after a year behind? Because we're just going to say, let's wash our hands. You failed anyway. That kid's not coming to school if we have a policy like that. I can guarantee that. I see it every day. We're going to unmotivate our children with a policy like that. And that's what worries me about doing something like that. And I've seen it. Right? I've already missed this many days. I can't pass my class. What am I doing? Why am I even coming anyway?
Does your boot camp incorporate attendance issues, and does your summer
Absolutely.
school?
Yeah.
Does your summer school incorporate kids with
Absolutely.
attendance issues?
Yeah.
So if you miss time, you can make up time. I know that it's frustrating to people, like they miss time in my class, why can't I make it up over here? That's frustrating, we get that, right? But it's about, there is a certain component to this
So
about
you threw the
time.
number out of roughly 2,000 students in our district.
What's that?
You threw the number out, roughly 2,000.
Yeah.
So we can have 1,950 kids come to school every day, 50 kids that miss 30 days of school, or more. It's all right for them to do that. And that's what we're trying to, and they're doing everything that they can possible. Like, with everything he's explaining is like, there's only so much you can do, and I understand that.
So there's some, we haven't been great, it's actually in the policy, you'll see it. We have a list of like all these things we're going to do that are kind of hardcore, right? They're kind of like, we're coming down on you, right? This is not good. We don't have incentives for that. And I know some people are like, I think you had a conversation in your faculty room, or at your faculty meeting, so what are you going to do? So we get them in, put them in suspension. I don't think they're coming back, right? We're going to get them in and we're going to suspend them, right? We're going to get them in and we're going to fail. I don't know that that's the recipe for success. But we could do a better job with interventions, and we could do a better job with connections, as Devin mentioned, and we could do a better job with incentives. We haven't been great at that. I think we're just dipping our toe into that. What about the middle school? What are some of the things, besides what Matt said, and I know you took it all, but what are some of the things that you do that address these kids that are missing a lot?
Well, what we're doing is we started our Eagles Wing Mentor Program, which is our invisible mentoring program where we identify students with faculty input, the students who didn't have a connection with the school. So we identified those students, teachers selected those kids, and we're supposed to, informally check on them and make a connection with them, not letting the kid know, hey, I'm your mentor,
right.
Something informal.
Hold on. That's like number one on the list to get kids to school. That's like number one.
So another thing we're trying to do through our SOAR days is that belonging piece is having students have a connection with one another and build those peer relationships. So that, because we had a lot of kids who just felt like they didn't have any friends at school and look forward to the end of the day and not during the day. So we felt like if we could foster peer relationships, that would help bring them in. But I have been talking about having that incentive and rewarding students who show up and do what they need to do. Mrs. Manchester and I, our counselors, during our counseling meetings have been brainstorming ideas. Do we, get ice cream or have some sort of social to help reward those students who are coming in, and then maybe incentivize those who, get up and maybe their throat hurts a little bit. Maybe they'll come for some ice cream or some social time. So we're starting to have that discussion now.
There will be these kids that drop out, and we try like heck not to lose any of them. And we track them, and we do all these things that they talk about, and they will be dropouts. What are the 5 Regents exams that a student needs to pass to be able to graduate?
So we got to pass, pass the science or math. Usually that's either living environment number 1. They got to pass ELA in 11th grade, and U.S. history.
One of the things we hear a lot is in middle school, why do we not retain kids? Okay, we can have that discussion again. Probably we're running out of time today. But what are the things we can do instead of retention, where we know where that lands, to help kids do better so that they do graduate? And again, sometimes what's frustrating is you don't get to see those interventions, and you're like, that kid didn't do the work in my room, right? That kid didn't do the work in my room. But at the end of the day, it's either going to catch up with them at the high school level, right? Or they're going to catch up. But either way, they're going to get a piper one way or another. And we're going to try to do research-based, data-driven decisions that drive kids to come to school and drive kids to perform well like we saw today. We're going to miss some, we're going to lose some, and some aren't going to reach their true potential, and others are going to. What's really good is we really spend the time talking about the kids that really fly and soar because of the things we offer.
Can I ask a question? With the attendance, are you seeing, is there a pattern with families?
Let me push this one on to Principal Stavanger, all right? So they all have the same issue. She doesn't have the most, but go ahead. What are some of the family issues?
So, elementary students can't drive themselves to school. So a lot of it, is parenting or their home situation. Parents and guardians needing some help getting organized. Parenting skills, getting kids up and ready and getting themselves up and functioning and ready. So we rely a lot on our counselors and our preventative worker, who we'll send referrals to. She'll go out into the home. She'll help set bedtime routines, this is the alarm, you have to get up. Just set morning routines for families just to help them get their kids to school. But I would think that, that's really the biggest challenge with attendance at the elementary school. Kids aren't, I don't care if the kids intentionally, pretending to get on the bus and walking around town. It's just that.
But it's a social, economic thing, and it's a cycle. That if the family isn't supportive or doesn't get the supports or respond to the supports, then you have a cycle that continuously goes. And when you're sending a school resource officer out to homes, you don't know what's going on in those homes. I have to go to homes in my daily job, and you're seeing things or being put in positions where you don't even know what you're getting at. So it's a lot of resource and it's a lot of time spent with challenges you don't have any control over. And DSS is far understaffed. That's just, you're finding that everywhere. So it's just a bigger issue. Now, if your specific issue is about somebody who's, I think if they don't fall into any of those categories, then I think obviously that's a specific thing that may want to be addressed.
I know some households you just can't get the children to school, or the parents don't care. I'm not naive to the situation. I know we have a lot of students that miss school, and there's something that's got to be done about that. And I'm not saying not pass them or not graduate them. That's not.
Well, there's also a lot of parents and a lot of people, individuals, adults who miss work. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but with the population that I work with, there's a lot of people that just aren't showing up. So you're talking about such a bigger issue that leaks down to the young ones. So engagement and getting somebody here because they have support or they have something they're interested in is invaluable.
That's another reason why we do offer more activities like ski club, because not everybody's on the basketball team or on the wrestling team. We do try to offer FFA. I know that wasn't here 8 years ago, 9 years ago. We do offer much more than we ever did. Rivalry, and we had a fishing club once and all that good stuff. But yeah, we know, like every now and then I take principals around when we hire them, and I say, here's going to be an area where you're going to call me and you're going to tell me this kid lives in this area and they don't come to school or they got arrested. And every time I get a phone call, hey, I give you a heads up, and I'm like, where do they live? And they're like, they live in one of these 3 areas. So it's that generational piece, and it is like a lot of the most serious ones are the repeat places come from, or repeat people come from those places. But you're 100% right, David. Those parents that need their kid to get out of bed and are working with us, these folks go to that house and drag them out. And Greg Myers did it when he was here, and Dave Manning does it. Those guys, they do that. All that being said is, we know, I started this with saying we know we need to do more. 92 is not terrible. There's a lot of schools that would love to have 92%. We think it's not good. We don't even think it's close to being good enough.
I just have issues with the kids, like my niece who knew she didn't have to come to school to graduate. And there's the older kids out there, some of them might feel that way. They know they can miss 30, 40 days and still graduate. If they're if they're passing the Regents, they could be a great student, should not want to come to school and still graduate. And then how's that fair to the kid who's here?
That's thoughts and beliefs and values that stems, it's a bigger...
I agree.
So we get into a slippery situation when the kid who's deathly sick, we have those kids and they're doing the work and they can graduate, they're not here. We have those kids that are out playing sports, hockey, and they miss a lot of school. They're still engaged when they get here, but they miss as much school. It gets very arbitrary very fast when we say X amount of time. And I know this isn't what you're saying, but
yeah, like that's all smoke and mirrors to try to say they're missing. I know kids miss because of sports. I get that. I know kids miss because of clubs. I get that. And that's what helps those numbers. I feel like because the kids who don't do any of those things and still miss, we're still rewarding.
People do get frustrated when they. I'm not talking about on our hockey team. I'm talking about like a private thing. They're gone for long periods of time. Family vacations, right? And there's something I recently saw. Well, we all know what our vacations are, but if you guys work in the prison, the new guy gets the least favorable vacation. Probably. I know at UPS they bid for the vacation time. Everybody wants, the senior people want when school's on vacation, and everybody else doesn't get when school's on vacation. So we deny them a family vacation, or do they get to go on family vacation?
Is there any way in June we could bring this back up at the end of the year and see what our numbers are?
Absolutely. I mean, we should be talking about
like students with like what student, not the numbers of how many days each student is. And we don't need obviously all 2,000, but the top 50. What are our numbers at?
Yeah.
I'm just going to give an example to add to the struggle. And I think the biggest struggle is in elementary because that's where my child, my 6-year-old, has to have an incentive to read because he doesn't like to read. But if he fills that sheet, he gets a prize or a talent ticket or something. That's his incentive. I'm like, in my world, I didn't need an incentive. I was just told to do it. Well, society as a whole there's a level of softness to working with people that didn't used to be. So it's really like just adults need incentives to do things, to be motivated. And how do you, I'm speaking from maybe just a small population, but it's the population that I work with. It's what I see. And I don't, we're constantly trying to figure out how do you change a cycle when it takes a village? So it's not just one component.
I would think, Dave, that you're going to see in April something saying this should be our goal, because if we see the numbers that I put on the board, we know that it's gone in all these other areas, like it's gone from 17 to 30, and from 20 to 35. we're not immune to that stuff. We're going to see that stuff. We don't have great answers. We don't have a magic. We don't know, like, we can just go buy this. It's not about the money you have in your fund balance, right? It's about connections. It's about the school environment. It's about the family situations. But as I said before, it's a great conversation. If there's anybody in our school district that doesn't want our kids here, most of our kids here all the time, right? So, but it'll be interesting to see how do we tackle that, and how do we improve, or how do we all that stuff, right? So, what, John?
Can I just say, 38 years working in education across the board, I would say this has been the most difficult problem in schools for 38 years. It's getting kids to school, whether it's policies or not. It's a challenge. I think what you're doing are the right things. There may just be more of it. And this is the biggest challenge in my school. But a kid walks back in the high school, sees 7 teachers, and he gets 7 stacks of papers that they have for the week, and goes, I can't do it. I mean, I had 3 kids today in tears. They were in for the first time in 2 weeks, and they walk in and they've got a test tomorrow. They just get overwhelmed. And it's a real challenge. Nobody has the answer, though. We're all working on it.
And we've created a learning center and Thrive and boot camp and summer school to help those kids that work done for those teachers, right? And I know they're not sitting in that seat, and it might not seem fair that they're not getting all that work done in front of them, but they tackle they don't all tackle the work, but do they tackle the work? Yeah.
The kids who miss 30 days during a school year are going to come to summer school.
Well, we'll look at that. Hey, we'll look at that. You might be right.
And the other fly in the ointment is, and it's highlighted in the commissioner's decision that's in our packet, is the commissioner still says that the student makes up the work. You cannot deny credit just on attendance. That's the catch for schools. So do you say to the kid, okay, I don't want you to make up the work so you can fail? No, as teachers, we're going to give them work and figure out how to work around and get the kid to do it. Well, if the kid did it, I'll move ahead. It's a challenge, and I understand the kids that get frustrated. Somebody else isn't there, and they're getting through.
There's a lot of kids that could be 92s, and they're 72s perfectly fine with them and graduating and coming here, not nearly as much as they should. But Dave and Chris and everybody else, thanks for your thoughts on that, and I think we should keep this as something very important to us moving forward, because it'll help with achievement and it'll help with a lot of things.
Matt, thank you. Well, I think everything that you said is great. You're doing everything possible. Like, there's only so much we can do. I appreciate it.
Can I ask just a quick question? Is this across the board, like it's middle school, it's elementary, like you said, and it's high school? Or?
So why don't I answer the questions? And when I looked at the data from our data coordinator, it is across the board. Like I said, the worst offenders are our pre-K kids, but they had like hand, foot, mouth disease and whatever.
Which is awful, by the way.
So it's all grades. It's not just like in high school.
So like 3rd grade's as good as 10th grade. So it's not, it's just weird when you look at the numbers. But it's in every building. But we know our rate is 92, and everybody's rate used to be higher. We want to get back.
Okay. Good. Public comment? Do we have anybody for public comment? We're not going to.
No.
Okay. So.
Scott.
Sorry.
I'll try to be brief. This has been a long meeting. Folks have done great. I'm Scott Katera, President of the DTA. Greatly appreciate the conversation that was had. We started a conversation. Mr. Mannix and I started a conversation at the end of last year about attendance. We believe in proactive approaches, and we appreciate everything that is being done. What's interesting tonight, when you look, the first part of this meeting was a presentation of our achievement data on the state exams. It would be interesting to see testing results of students with high absenteeism, because a lot of times we're judging our state data and we're saying these students might not have met what we want them to be at, but maybe some of those students have missed a tremendous amount of school. We recognize this as an across-the-board, all-over problem. I think our focus as an association, our biggest concern is chronic absenteeism. students who miss a tremendous amount of school, not illness related, not, just people miss school from time to time. We're talking the high numbers of students. And then that puts a lot of pressure on the system, on administration. It takes up a lot of times in meetings and our resources. I heard great programs and ideas. I'm part of the silent mentoring program in the middle school. Sometimes when you get to middle school and high school, it's too late with a lot of things. If we establish K through 6, if a student leaves 6th grade with an attendance problem, it's probably not going to get fixed. We're going to try like heck. We're going to use as many resources as possible. But it's the early intervention, as early as possible. But we greatly appreciate the conversation, and we would like to be a part of the solution.
You have to be. It's not admin doesn't fix this thing. You have to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Resolved that the Board of Education adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
8:05. Okay. Thank you, everybody.